Nodding syndrome was first identified in Tanzania in 1960s and later Southern Sudan, according to World Health Organization. It came to Uganda around 2007, specifically in the northern Uganda community. In 2012, there was an estimated effect of more than 3,000 victims of nodding syndrome. A few years later, studies indicate a gross impact of more than 8,000 children, commonly between the ages of 5 to 15 years, and expanding from initial 3 districts of Padel, Kitgum, and Lamo, to also Gulu, Amuru, Oyam, Lira, and Omoro districts. This disease is common amongst the very poor families who can't afford basic needs, including food. This is mainly families that have at least stayed in internally displaced persons camps after an insurgency under rebel leader Joseph Kony that left many homeless, orphaned, and dependent on humanitarian aid for support. The aftermath of the war still haunts these families, and worse for nodding disease-affected families. An estimated number of over 130 children have succumbed to nodding syndrome since 2012.
They're a very vulnerable, marginalised, impoverished community. They don't have a voice on the international world agenda. They don't have a platform to advocate for themselves. They're our ideal community. They're really special to Clan to be working with this community.
Since its identification in Uganda, several theories have been established in relation to the cause of nodding syndrome. Some of these publications have defined nodding syndrome as a chronic debilitating disease that affects mainly the brain. It weakens muscles and makes the head loll on the shoulders. It is also characterized with seizures, drooling, malnutrition, growth retardation, confusion, nodding the head, and sleeping at the sight of food. This is how it came to be referred to as nodding syndrome. Some researchers have linked it to the black fly causing okonsesiasis. It's this research that pushed government to intervene by spraying along riverbanks in order to eliminate the black fly. However, Professor Chitala David Logolo, a researcher from Guru University who has been researching about this disease for at least 12 years, disagrees with most of these publications, especially those linking the syndrome to epilepsy and river blindness, but rather relates it to the absence of specific enzymes in the body which are necessary for production of energy.
The enzyme is called acylcarnitine and also biotinidase. These two substances are important in the metabolism, in the production of energy. So right now we are pursuing this as a probable, we call it a probable metabolic disorder. But we don't know whether it is before the onset of nodding syndrome or it was after.
Lagoro says activities like vigorous exercise, local food, cold weather, cold water, starvation stimulate nodding. He says this is because most of these activities require energy.
The anti-epileptic treatment might help the patients to feel better, because nodding syndrome is actually a form of epilepsy where during the head nodding the patients have seizures. So if you can stop them from having these seizures, they might be able to eat.
And when you look at it carefully, there must be a problem with the energy production. And this is also linked to the deficiencies that we talk about in the Krebs cycle. When you look at the Krebs cycle and you look at the mitochondrium, you look at the membrane of the mitochondrium, it has areas where you have complexes.
He advises fellow researchers to focus on why this disease is clustered in relation to time, space, age, and geographical location.
During internal displacement. In space, geographically located on either sides of the two major rivers of Achua and Page. And they are very discrete areas. They are not just going along the river. And then in person, the onset is mainly between the ages of 5 to 15. So when you look at, for those who have studied epidemiology, it's called the Knox description of epidemiology.
From these contradictory findings, one is definitely tempted to pay a visit to some of the communities grappling with the disease to find out their stories. This journey started in Omoro district, which is believed to have 80% of the nodding syndrome cases. While at a small trading center in Odek Sub-County, Omoro District, we found a 16-year-old boy, Okello Santo, eking a living through vending sugarcane. Santo was a lively, hard-working boy despite living with the disease until one fateful day in October 2017 when he got a nodding syndrome attack and fell into burning fire, a fire that disabled him for life. His fate can be linked to the theory that nodding syndrome attacks are sometimes triggered by food. This could remotely explain Santo's predicament. According to his mother, he had spent 2 months skipping medication, a reason his mother says could have triggered the attack at the moment.
She was not at home, but she had left food on fire. She is also thinking that could be the boy went to access food or he went to blow the fire so that it burns and the food gets ready.
Despite his condition, at the age of 16, culturally, he cannot stay in the same house with his mother. A grass-thatched house was built for him next to his family's. We found him sweeping the compound next to his house. Our next stop was Padel District, where we met Michael Adong and his family. Michael Adong is one of the hundreds of children in Padel District whose dreams were shattered by the cruel nodding disease. Looking at 18-year-old Adong, one can tell that the disease has had a toll on his life. Despite being on medication that reduces convulsions and other complications that come with the disease, confusion and drooling have remained a part of his life. At 18, he behaves like a 3-year-old child and is still under the complete care of his 68-year-old mother, Okello Josephine. His mother, who also takes care of her 2 grandchildren, tells us of how on several occasions her son has disappeared from home, making her leave everything to search for him. No sooner had she finished narrating that than Adong was out of sight. It took us about 10 minutes to locate him. This family's problem isn't just dealing with nodding syndrome. Poverty has also had a toll on them. It is time for lunch, and all they have for a meal is millet bread and greens, keeping in mind that good feeding is essential for the growth of children with nodding syndrome. Maybe this could be the reason Adongo's situation hasn't gotten any better. For this family, this small hut that doubles as a kitchen and a bedroom is what they call a home. But how does this family survive? Okello tells us that on a daily, she collects firewood which she sells at 2,500 a bunch, money she uses to purchase food. Despite this disease affecting communities for long, a few interventions by both government and non-government organizations have been done. Dr. Andrew Tinamasko, a community access officer with FAB's organization, an NGO that's now giving humanitarian support to the families and children affected by the syndrome, calls upon Ugandans to come in large numbers to support these children and their families, saying over-dependence on donor funding isn't sustainable.
Poverty has led to inability to access medicines, but also because of the burden of the disease and children really staying home all the time, parents end up staying at home and not working. So if we address financial sustainability of the families, of which as an organization we hope we are going to achieve it by ensuring that we bring together these families that are affected. They do communal work as a group of people sharing the same challenges. There are lots of things that we can support them in as Ugandans and other well-wishers.
If we focused on 5 key pillars: affordable access to medicine and equipment, education, research and advocacy, optimising medical management, and that's a holistic approach, encouraging family support groups, encouraging the nodding syndrome community, and reducing financial burdens on families, that we would be able to make a step forward in the right direction and wait until we heard more, learnt more from the community themselves.
While in Omoro District, Odek Sub-County, we visited where the only rehabilitation and specialized training facility, Hope for Humans, was once located. Cow dung and abandoned buildings is what welcomes us here. One could easily mistake this for a kraal, little knowing that this facility was once a safe haven to hundreds of nodding syndrome patients until December 31st, 2017, when it was shut down due to limited funds. The closure of this facility has now become a death trap to patients. Since its closure, at least 2 children have died, according to statistics from Gulu District Local Government Health Center 3 in Omoro District. Anon Vicky, who had been at Gulu Health Center 3 for 3 weeks by the time we visited, told us that she was redeployed here to save the situation after nodding syndrome started reclaiming lives again. The condition of at least 50% of all the patients has deteriorated due to the closure of the treatment center.
Some of these families are unable to keep these children as compared to the caretaker who was at the center. So these children can easily develop other complications due to malnutrition, becomes retarded and pass on. They are just like that. 50% of the children have deteriorated.
Initially, village health teams moved around the district to check on patients, but with the limited funds, this is no more. Anon narrates to us how parents are trekking long distances to bring children to the only facility in the district.
Family members are unable. You can even see this person is unable to carry these children, or even these children are sick. Some of them are sent to the treatment center like this place alone to come and pick treatment. At times they end up getting fits on the way. Reaching here, they're already confused. You can just see this child is confused. This child is unable. And at times they don't just come, and they end up being in the village just like that, and that is how they are deteriorating.
As if that's not bad enough, information we are getting from this facility is that there could be a fresh outbreak of nodding syndrome. With the suspected outbreak of new nodding syndrome cases, the shutdown of the only treatment facility in Omoro District, coupled with increased drug stockout, what next for these children? There are many more families in northern Uganda that have a story to tell.
Thing which should be given to me, I need only transport to take them to either dispensary or the oxygen which I can flow to them.
However, the burden is far much bigger than just medicines. Poverty, stigma, shortage of food in affected families, hopelessness, lack of skills, and rehabilitation of survivors need to be tackled if we are to reduce the burden. More psychiatric nurses and VHTs need to be trained and dispensed to all health facilities handling nodding syndrome. There should be follow-up checkups to the patients at their homes, and for this, there is need to avail transport means. More treatment centers handling only nodding disease should be put in place, especially in hard-to-reach areas.
And really helping the community from a community development approach to find a voice for themselves and start advocating for themselves instead of being trapped within a biomedical model where doctors, specialists, experts were speaking for them and about solutions for them, but rather talk to the community and find out from the community what is it that you need to have the highest quality of life possible for your children.
FAB's organization has taken it upon themselves to help the affected communities. For patients that have taken on treatment, there has been improvement. Most of the symptoms such as drooling, uncontrolled seizures, nodding the head and malnutrition have receded. However, there are no reports indicating complete cure from the nodding syndrome. But it is true that these people can live better fulfilled lives if only well-wishers, government and development partners join efforts to support these communities.